I'm Olivia Turner, 32 years old. If someone told you that your own sister would kick you out of Thanksgiving dinner for being too blue collar to meet her lawyer friends, would you believe it? That's exactly what happened to me last November, and the aftermath changed our family forever. My sister Madison thought she was protecting her image by hiding her embarrassing HVAC technician sister from her prestigious colleagues. What she didn't know was that this lowly technician had been secretly funding her entire legal education and controlled something much more valuable than she could imagine. Before I share what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. I'm curious, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. Now let me take you back to that unforgettable Thanksgiving. It started 3 days before Thanksgiving. Madison called me while I was reviewing contracts at my office, though she assumed I was probably under someone's sink. Olivia, about Thursday, she began, her voice carrying that familiar edge of anxiety. I need to talk to you about the dinner. What about it? I asked, already sensing where this was heading. Well, some colleagues from the firm will be joining us. Important people, partners actually, she paused. So about the dress code. Madison, I know how to dress for Thanksgiving dinner. Of course, it's just, when they ask what you do. Another pause. Maybe just say you're in climate control consulting. It sounds more professional. I felt my stomach tighten. You mean instead of saying I'm an HVAC technician? It's not lying. You do consult on climate control systems, right? For buildings and stuff? Madison, I own a company that… I know, you have your little business. But these people, Olivia, they're from Harrison and Associates. They handle billion-dollar mergers. I need this to go perfectly. Robert Harrison himself might come. Her boss. The name meant nothing to me then, though it would soon mean everything. Fine, I said, too tired to argue. Climate control consulting it is. Thank you. Oh, and Olivia, maybe wear that navy dress you wore to Cousin Janet's wedding. It looked very appropriate. After she hung up, I stared at the contracts on my desk. 5 new commercial buildings, all requiring HVAC systems. My little business had just landed another $1 million quarter. But to Madison, I would always be the sister who worked with her hands, the one who chose trade school over law school. I should have known then what was coming. I arrived at Madison's house in Westchester at noon on Thanksgiving, 2 hours early as promised to help with preparations. Her house, a beautiful colonial that screamed successful young lawyer, always felt more like a stage set than a home. You're wearing jeans, Madison said instead of hello. I brought my dress. I'm here to help cook, remember? She glanced nervously at the door. Right. Well, some people are coming early. Maybe you should change now? While I changed in the guest bathroom, I could hear Madison frantically adjusting everything, the table settings, the flowers, even the family photos on the mantel. She actually removed one of us together at my trade school graduation. By 2 p.m., the lawyers started arriving. Madison transformed into someone I barely recognized, her voice pitched higher, her laugh more musical. She introduced me to each guest the same way. This is my sister Olivia. She works in the technical sector. Technical sector, like I was some Silicon Valley programmer instead of someone who fixed their air conditioning. Then Robert Harrison walked in. He was older, distinguished, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. When Madison introduced us, those eyes lingered on my face for a moment longer than necessary. Olivia Turner, he repeated slowly. Why does that name sound familiar? Oh, Olivia's pretty common, Madison jumped in quickly, her laugh too bright. Shall I get you a drink, Robert? But he was still looking at me, his expression thoughtful. Turner Climate Solutions? Madison's face went pale. That's just a coincidence. My sister does repairs, small stuff, residential. I opened my mouth to correct her, but the warning look she shot me could have frozen hell itself. Something was about to shatter. I could feel it in the air, like the pressure change before a storm. The real humiliation began during cocktail hour. Madison had strategically placed me at the far end of the living room, away from the main conversation circle, but one of the younger associates, Derek, wandered over with his martini. So, technical sector? He asked politely. What kind of tech? Before I could craft Madison's preferred lie, she appeared like a hawk protecting its nest. Olivia works with HVAC systems, heating and cooling. Oh, like an engineer? More like a repair person, Madison corrected quickly, that fake laugh again. She fixes air conditioners. Derek's expression shifted, that subtle change I'd seen 1,000 times. Oh, well, someone has to do it, right? Exactly, Madison agreed too enthusiastically. Blue-collar work is so essential. The way she said essential, like she was describing a particularly well-trained pet, made my skin burn. Actually, I started. Olivia likes to call her repair jobs a company, Madison interrupted, smiling at Derek like they were sharing an inside joke. It's sweet, really. She has such big dreams. Derek chuckled politely and excused himself to rejoin the real professionals. I watched him whisper something to another associate, both glancing my way with barely concealed amusement. Madison stayed behind, her smile finally dropping. What are you doing? Telling the truth? The truth doesn't matter right now. These people, they don't understand our background, where we came from. You mean where you came from? I'm not ashamed of. Well, maybe you should be. The words shot out before she could stop them. We both froze. I didn't mean that, she said quickly, but she did. We both knew she did. From the kitchen doorway, I caught Aunt Carol watching us, her expression unreadable. Madison grabbed my arm and pulled me into the kitchen, away from the guests. Listen, she hissed, checking that no one had followed. I've worked too hard to get where I am. Do you understand what this dinner means? Robert Harrison doesn't socialize with junior associates. This is my chance to make partner track. And what? I'm going to ruin it by existing? By talking about your work. These people, they went to Harvard, Yale. They discuss mergers and international law. You want to talk about refrigerant and ductwork? It's honest work, Madison. It's embarrassing. She caught herself, lowered her voice. Look, just stay in here, help with the food. I'll tell them you're not feeling well. You want me to hide in the kitchen during Thanksgiving dinner? I want you to be realistic. You don't fit in that room, Olivia. You know it. I know it. They know it. The words hit like physical blows. But what hurt more was the relief on her face when she thought I'd comply. I'm not ashamed of what I do, Madison. Well, I am. She immediately pressed her hand to her mouth, but it was too late. I mean, I just want everything to be perfect. From behind us, Aunt Carol's voice cut through the tension. Madison, your guests are asking for you. Madison shot me one last pleading look before rushing back to her audience. Aunt Carol stayed, studying me with those knowing eyes. How long are you going to let her do this to you? She asked softly. It's one dinner. It's been 7 years of dinners. Your father would be heartbroken. She was right. Dad would be more than heartbroken about what was about to happen. But maybe it was time. Standing in Madison's kitchen, I thought about the promise I'd made to Dad 7 years ago. He was dying. The cancer had spread everywhere, and Madison was in her first year of law school, drowning in debt. Take care of your sister, he'd whispered, his hand weak in mine. She's brilliant, but fragile. She needs someone strong like you. I will, Dad. I promise. He'd left us nothing but debt and that promise. Madison didn't know that the night after his funeral, I'd sold my car, liquidated my retirement account, and set up an anonymous education trust in her name. She thought it was some forgotten investment of Dad's. 7 years. Every month $3,500 left my account. Tuition, books, bar exam fees, even her apartment deposit. I'd expanded my business, taken on dangerous industrial jobs, worked 18-hour days. Also, Madison could become the lawyer Dad dreamed she'd be. And now she wanted me to hide in the kitchen because I embarrassed her. You know what she doesn't know, don't you? Aunt Carol said, joining me by the window. How did you? I helped you set up the trust, remember? Through my banker friend. Madison has no idea her successful sister is the reason she's not drowning in 300,000 in student loans. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Your father said to take care of her, not to let her walk all over you. There's a difference. Through the doorway, I could hear Madison's bright laugh, performing for her audience. Robert Harrison's deep voice responded, something about property holdings and commercial real estate. Sometimes, Aunt Carol said quietly, the best way to take care of someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. If only I'd known how prophetic those words would be. Wow, can you believe Madison's behavior? I know many of you have experienced something similar with family members who judge us based on our careers. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button. It really helps other people find these stories who might need to hear them. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been looked down on for having a blue-collar job? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me. Now, let's see what happened when things escalated at dinner. Dinner was served at 4 o'clock. Madison had arranged the seating strategically, herself at the center where she could control the conversation, me at the far end near the kitchen door. In case we need anything, she'd said. Isha isha. The conversation flowed around mergers, acquisitions, and legal precedents. I ate quietly, responding only when directly addressed. Then Robert Harrison, who'd been watching me throughout the meal, set down his wine glass. Ms. Turner, he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. Olivia, I've been trying to place where I know your name. Turner Climate Solutions. That's your company, isn't it? The table went silent. Madison's fork clattered against her plate. That's impossible, Madison said quickly. Olivia works for a small repair. No, Robert interrupted, his eyes never leaving mine. Turner Climate Solutions. You bid on the Hartley Building project last month. We represent the Hartley Group. I felt every eye at the table turn to me. Madison's face had gone pale. Yes, I said simply. That's my company. Your company? Derek, the associate from earlier, looked confused. But I thought you repaired air conditioners. I do. I also design, install, and maintain complete HVAC systems for commercial properties. We have about 200 employees now. Stop, Madison stood abruptly, her voice sharp. Just stop embarrassing yourself, Olivia. The room froze. Even the grandfather clock seemed to pause its ticking. Embarrassing myself? I asked quietly. Yes. Pretending your little repair shop is some big corporation. These people know what real businesses look like. Robert Harrison's eyebrows rose. Madison, your sister's company had $40 million in revenue last year. They're the largest independent HVAC contractor in the state. The silence that followed was deafening. Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's not possible, she whispered. Why? I asked, finally letting 7 years of hurt creep into my voice. Because I work with my hands? Because I didn't go to law school? Because you're just... She stopped, but everyone knew what she'd been about to say. Just a blue-collar nobody. Just the embarrassing sister who chose the wrong path. Robert Harrison cleared his throat. Perhaps we should... But Madison wasn't done. Her embarrassment had transformed into anger, and she was about to make everything much, much worse. Madison's face flushed red, her carefully constructed image crumbling before her audience. She turned on me with 7 years of resentment blazing in her eyes. You're lying, she said flatly. I don't know what game you're playing, but... Madison, Aunt Carol warned from across the table. No, Madison's voice rose. She's trying to humiliate me in front of my colleagues, making up stories about some big company. It's not a story, Robert said calmly. We've been trying to secure a meeting with Ms. Turner for months. Turner Climate Solutions has the exclusive maintenance contract for our building. The other lawyers began murmuring among themselves. One pulled out his phone, presumably Googling my company. Madison laughed, but it was hollow, desperate. This is ridiculous. Olivia, You need to leave. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. This is a professional gathering, not a blue-collar meetup. Someone gasped. I think it was Derek's wife. Madison, Robert's voice carried a warning. That's enough. But Madison was beyond listening. Her world was tilting, and she was grabbing for control the only way she knew how, by pushing me down. Some people just don't fit in certain settings, she continued, her voice cold. It's not personal, it's just reality. You don't belong here, Olivia. You never have. Because I'm just a technician? Because you're an embarrassment. The words exploded out of her. Do you know how hard I've worked to distance myself from all of this? From being the daughter of a plumber who died broke? From having a sister who chose trade school over college? The room was tomb silent. Even the catering staff had frozen in the doorway. And now you want to come here and pretend you're something you're not? In front of the people who matter? I stood slowly, reaching for my purse. You're right, Madison. I don't belong here. Finally, some sense. I don't belong anywhere near someone who's ashamed of where they came from, who's ashamed of their own family. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message. Madison scoffed. Calling your husband to pick you up? Oh, wait, you don't have one of those either. One of the associates' wives audibly gasped at the cruelty, but I just smiled. No, Madison, I'm setting something in motion you should have seen coming. I finished typing the message and hit send. Across the table, Aunt Carol nodded slightly. She knew what I'd just done. 7 years, I said quietly, standing up and reaching for my document bag. 7 years is enough. Madison rolled her eyes. Dramatic much? What does that even mean? You'll find out soon enough. I pulled out a thick manila envelope, the Turner Climate Solutions logo prominent on its surface. Madison laughed, but there was uncertainty in it now. What's that, your work invoice? Going to bill me for Thanksgiving dinner? I didn't answer, just set the envelope on the table. Robert Harrison's eyes tracked the movement, noting the logo, the official look of the documents visible through the opening. This is ridiculous, Madison said, but her voice wavered. Whatever little game you're playing, it's not a game. I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each guest. I want you all to remember this moment. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Spare us the fortune cookie wisdom, Madison snapped. Just leave. Gladly. I picked up my coat. But first, Robert, you should know that the message I just sent was to my CFO. As of Monday, we'll be reviewing all our commercial contracts for conflicts of interest. Robert's eyes sharpened. He understood the implication immediately, even if Madison didn't. Conflicts of interest? Madison scoffed. You repair air conditioners, Olivia. Stop pretending. Everything has a price, Madison, I interrupted, echoing what I'd been thinking all evening. Even family loyalty. Aunt Carol stood up. I think I'll be leaving too. Madison, you might want to open that envelope. After Olivia leaves, Madison said firmly, I won't have her making a scene. If only she knew. The scene hadn't even started yet. I paused at the dining room threshold, my coat over my arm, and pulled out a second, smaller envelope from my bag. This one was cream-colored, expensive-looking, with Estate of Daniel Turner embossed on the front. Actually, Madison, there's one more thing. I set it next to the first envelope. Dad left you something after all. Her eyes flickered with interest despite her anger. Dad didn't have anything to leave. Not money, no. But he had wishes, instructions. And he made me the executor of something very specific. Robert Harrison leaned forward slightly. As a lawyer, he recognized legal documents when he saw them. You're being ridiculous, Madison said, but her hand twitched toward the envelope. Am I? Then open it. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. Unless you're afraid of what's inside? I'm not afraid of anything from you. Prove it. The challenge hung in the air. Madison's colleagues watched with barely concealed fascination. This was better than any courtroom drama. Madison snatched the cream envelope, tearing it open with sharp, angry movements. As she pulled out the papers, I saw the moment her eyes caught the letterhead. Whitman Family Trust, Educational Fund Administrator, Olivia Turner. Her face went white. "What?" she whispered. "Keep reading," I said softly. One of the associates craned his neck to see. "Is that a trust document?" Madison's hands had started shaking. She looked up at me, then at Aunt Carol, then back at the papers. "This can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," Aunt Carol said. "I helped set it up, notarized it myself." Robert Harrison stood slightly, professional interest overcoming social awkwardness. "Madison, what is it?" But Madison couldn't speak. She'd just discovered that her entire life, everything she'd achieved, had been built on a foundation she never knew existed. Madison found her voice, and it came out as venom. "This is fake. Some pathetic attempt to embarrass me. Every payment to Columbia Law," I said calmly. "Every bar exam fee, every book, every student loan payment that mysteriously disappeared. That was me, Madison. For 7 years." "You're lying," she stood, waving the papers. "You couldn't possibly afford—" "Because I'm just a blue-collar nobody?" I let the words hang. "You're right. A repair technician couldn't afford it. But the owner of the largest HVAC company in the state, the one with 40 million in revenue, she could." The room erupted in whispers. Madison's carefully curated image was crumbling in real time. "Let me tell you what you don't know about your embarrassing sister," I continued, my voice steady despite the pain. "While you were in your ivory tower, I was building an empire. 18-hour days, dangerous industrial jobs, contracts others wouldn't touch. Why? To keep a promise to our father." "Stop it," Madison hissed. "He asked me to take care of you, and I did. Every semester, $3,500. Your apartment deposit when you couldn't make rent. The bar exam prep course you thought you won in a raffle, that was me too. You're making this up to humiliate me." "The humiliation is all yours, Madison." I turned to address her colleagues. "She's spent 7 years being ashamed of where she came from. Ashamed of our father who died of cancer working 3 jobs to support us. Ashamed of me for choosing honest work over prestige." "Not everyone can work with their mind," Madison spat, repeating her earlier insult. "Some people are just meant for manual labor." Robert Harrison actually flinched at that. "You're right," I said. "And some people are meant to be grateful, to have character, to remember where they came from. You, Madison, you're none of those things." "Get out!" Madison screamed. "Get out of my house!" "Gladly. But first," I pointed to the manila envelope, "you might want to look at what else is in there, particularly the document marked Contract Termination Notice." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. Madison ripped open the manila envelope with such force that papers scattered across the table. Robert Harrison picked up one that landed near his plate, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock. "Madison," he said slowly, "do you know what this is?" She was frantically reading, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, horror. "Turner Climate Solutions, exclusive HVAC maintenance contract, Harrison and Associates," she read in fragments. "This can't be." "Your sister's company," Robert said carefully, "maintains every climate control system in our building, has for 3 years. It's a $5 million annual contract." The other lawyers were now passing documents around, murmuring in amazement. "Page 3, I said helpfully. "The termination clause." Madison flipped frantically. 30 days notice. Conflict of interest clause." "What conflict of interest?" "The one where my sister publicly humiliated me in front of the very clients I service," I said. "That seems like a pretty significant conflict to me." "You can't? You wouldn't?" "I can, and I am. As of Monday, Harrison and Associates has 30 days to find a new HVAC contractor." Robert's face had gone pale. "Ms. Turner, surely we can discuss—" "There's nothing to discuss. Madison made it clear that I don't belong in her world. I'm simply respecting her wishes." This is blackmail, Madison shrieked. No, it's business. Something you should understand, being such a successful lawyer. Aunt Carol stood up. Madison, you should also know that without Olivia's financial support, you still owe Columbia about $50,000 for your final semester. Madison swayed on her feet. What? The trust only covered through last semester. This final payment was supposed to come through next month. But I think Olivia's done paying for someone who's ashamed of her. You can't do this, Madison's voice broke. My career, my reputation. Your career built on my money? Your reputation built on hiding your working-class roots? I picked up my bag. You wanted to pretend I don't exist. Congratulations, Madison. As far as you're concerned, I no longer do. Robert Harrison stood. Ms. Turner, Olivia, please, let's discuss this rationally. But I was already walking out, leaving Madison to face the ruins of the world she'd built on a foundation of ingratitude and shame. I still get emotional remembering this moment. The betrayal from your own family hits different, doesn't it? If you've ever had to stand up to a family member who didn't appreciate your sacrifices, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. And if you're finding value in this, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next, because the truth is about to come out in the most unexpected way. The room exploded the moment I left. I could hear it from the foyer as I put on my coat. Madison's voice, shrill and desperate. Robert Harrison's deep tones trying to restore order. The chaos of 12 lawyers all talking at once. Then Robert appeared in the doorway. Ms. Turner, Olivia, please wait. I paused, my hand on the door handle. Your sister is having difficulty processing this information, he said carefully, but I need to understand something. You really own Turner Climate Solutions? For 8 years now. The same company that maintains the Hartley Building, the Morrison Complex, and our entire office? Among about 60 other commercial properties, yes. He shook his head in amazement. We've been trying to expand your contract for months. My facilities manager says you're the best in the business. And yet my sister is ashamed of me. Madison is young, he said diplomatically. Young and apparently very foolish. From the dining room we could hear Madison screaming. She can't do this, there has to be a law. There is, Robert said quietly to me. Contract law, and you're well within your rights. He paused. Though I hope you'll reconsider, not for Madison's sake, but for the 40 other lawyers who had nothing to do with this. You have 30 days to find another contractor. In December? Do you know how impossible that will be? About as impossible as sitting in that room while my sister called me an embarrassment. He nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, Madison's behavior tonight, it won't go unnoticed at the firm. We value character, Ms. Turner, and your sister just showed us hers. Madison appeared behind him, mascara streaking down her face. Olivia, please, let's talk about this. Now you want to talk? After you kicked me out? I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The pressure of having your law school paid for? The pressure of never having to worry about student loans? That pressure? The other guests had crowded into the hallway now, watching this family drama unfold like a live theater performance. Everyone makes mistakes, Madison pleaded. This wasn't a mistake. This was 7 years of you being ashamed of me, of Dad, of where we came from. I'm not ashamed. You removed our photo from your mantle. You told people I fix air conditioners like it's something shameful. You tried to hide me in the kitchen. Each word hit her like a physical blow. Please, she whispered. You're all I have left. No, Madison. I was all you had left. And you threw me away for the approval of people who now know exactly what kind of person you are. I opened the door, letting in the cold November air. Happy Thanksgiving, Madison. Enjoy explaining to Columbia how you're going to pay that final semester. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I turned back to face the crowd gathered in Madison's foyer. You want to know the whole truth? I asked the room. Let me tell you about Daniel Turner's daughters. Madison tried to interrupt, but Robert held up a hand, silencing her. Our father was a plumber, I continued. Worked himself to death, literally, trying to give us a better life. When he died, Madison was in her first year at Columbia Law, drowning in debt, about to drop out. Olivia, don't, Madison pleaded. Dad made me promise to take care of her. So I did. I sold everything I had, took on the most dangerous HVAC jobs, asbestos-filled buildings, chemical plants, places that paid hazard pay. I built my company from nothing, working jobs other contractors wouldn't touch. The lawyers were transfixed. This was better than any case study. Every month for 7 years, I sent $3,500 to an education trust. Madison thought it was from Dad's life insurance. There was no life insurance. There was just me, keeping my promise. I pulled out my phone, showing them the banking app. Here's every transfer. $300,000 total. Law school, bar exam, apartment deposits, even her car payment when she couldn't make it. Madison had slid down the wall, sitting on the floor now, sobbing. And how did she repay me? I looked at each of them. By being embarrassed of me. By telling people I'm just a repair person. By trying to hide me from you all because I work with my hands. Aunt Carol stepped forward, holding another document. I have here a notarized record of every payment, every sacrifice Olivia made. She worked 18-hour days. She delayed her own life, her own dreams, to fund Madison's. Why? Derek's wife asked softly. Why would you do all that for someone who treated you this way? Because family is supposed to mean something, I said. Because promises matter. Because I thought that someday Madison would understand that success isn't about the letters after your name or the prestige of your job. It's about character, integrity, remembering where you came from. Robert Harrison cleared his throat. Madison, is this true? All of it? She couldn't answer, just nodded through her tears. Then you haven't just embarrassed yourself tonight, he said coldly. You've shown us that you lack the basic character we require at Harrison and Associates. Madison's head snapped up. What? Your performance review is next month. This display of ingratitude, of classism, of complete lack of integrity? It will be noted. The death blow to her career, delivered by the very person she'd tried to impress. The trust fund is terminated as of tonight, I announced. The HVAC contract will end in 30 days. And Madison, we're done. Don't call, don't write, don't show up at my office. I pulled out the final document from my bag, the one I'd hoped I'd never have to use. This is a cessation of support notice, I said, handing it to Madison. Legally notarized, witnessed, and effective immediately. Madison's hands shook as she read it. You're really cutting me off? I'm setting boundaries with someone who never valued what I gave. But I'll lose everything, my apartment, my car, they're all tied to payments from the trust. Then you'll have to do what I did, work for it. Robert Harrison took the document, scanning it with professional interest. This is ironclad, he murmured. Your sister knew exactly what she was doing. Of course I did. I've been running a multi-million-dollar company for 8 years. I didn't get there by being the stupid sister who works with her hands. Madison struggled to her feet. Please, Olivia, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry there are consequences. That's not true. Really? Then tell me, Madison, when were you planning to thank me? When were you going to acknowledge that your entire career exists because I kept my promise to Dad? Silence. That's what I thought. I signed the termination notice with a flourish. It's done. The trust fund that paid for your education? Terminated. The HVAC contract that could have been a connection between us? Terminated in 30 days. Our relationship? Well, you terminated that yourself tonight. You can't just abandon me. I'm not abandoning you. I'm doing what I should have done years ago, letting you stand on your own feet, without being ashamed of the shoulders you stood on to get there. One of the other lawyers whispered, This is brutal. No, Aunt Carol corrected. This is justice. Madison spent 7 years taking Olivia's money while being ashamed of her. She made her bed. Robert Harrison handed the papers back to Madison. You should know that without Turner Climate Solutions, our building will likely have to close for at least a week during the transition. That's millions in lost billable hours. Madison's face went even paler, if that was possible. That's not my problem anymore, I said, heading for the door one last time. Good luck explaining that to the senior partners, Madison. I'm sure they'll be very understanding about why you insulted and humiliated your sister, who happened to be their most crucial vendor. The immediate aftermath was swift and brutal. Before I even reached my car, my phone was buzzing with a text from my CFO confirming the contract termination notice would be sent Monday morning. Behind me, I could hear the exodus beginning. Car doors slamming, engines starting. Madison's carefully orchestrated Thanksgiving was over. Olivia, wait! Robert Harrison jogged after me, his breath visible in the cold air. Please, just a moment. I paused by my Tesla. Yes, the HVAC technician drove a Tesla Model S. Another thing Madison never bothered to notice. This will affect Madison's career severely, he said. I know. She owes $50,000 to Columbia. Without your support, she'll have to take out emergency loans at terrible rates. I know. The firm will have to review her position. This kind of character issue, the disruption to our operations, that's between you and her. He studied me for a moment. You knew this would happen. You knew I'd be here tonight. I smiled slightly. I had my suspicions when she mentioned you specifically. I've been providing your HVAC services for 3 years, Robert. I know your schedule. Madison never made the connection because she never asked about my work. She could lose her job. She should have thought of that before publicly humiliating the person paying her bills. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. Your father would be proud of what you built, Olivia, and ashamed of how Madison treated you. Thank you. One more thing. That Hartley Building project? We'd like to discuss it with you directly, without Madison involved. I handed him my business card, my real one, with CEO printed clearly under my name. Call my office Monday. As I drove away, I saw Madison standing in her doorway, illuminated by the porch light, watching her future disappear along with my taillights. The other guests were leaving too, the parking lot emptying rapidly. Her big networking dinner had become her professional funeral. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Carol. Your father would be proud. You kept your promise long enough. It was time to let go. She was right. 7 years of sacrifice, of being diminished and dismissed, of funding someone who was ashamed of me. It was finally over. But the real consequences? Those were just beginning. The following week was a tornado of consequences for Madison. Monday morning, my CFO hand-delivered the contract termination notice to Harrison and Associates. By noon, the senior partners were in emergency session. The building's HVAC system, maintained exclusively by my company for 3 years, would need a new contractor in the dead of winter. The other major firms were either already committed or charging triple rates for emergency service. Tuesday, Madison was called into a partner meeting. Robert Harrison told me later we'd met to discuss the Hartley Building, that she'd been reassigned from corporate law to document review, the basement, where first-year associates usually started. She cried, he said simply, blamed you for ruining her life. And I reminded her that she ruined her own life the moment she forgot where she came from. Wednesday, Columbia. Law's financial office contacted Madison about the outstanding $50,000. Without the trust fund's final payment, she had 48 hours to secure emergency loans or face having her degree withheld. Thursday, the story had somehow spread through the legal community. Madison Turner, the rising star who publicly humiliated her blue-collar sister, only to discover that sister was a millionaire CEO who'd been paying her way. She became a cautionary tale told at law firms across the city. Friday, I received an email from Madison. 20 paragraphs of apologies, justifications, and pleas. I didn't respond. But the real blow came the following Monday. Harrison and Associates announced they'd have to close for 3 days during the HVAC transition. The lost billable hours, the client inconvenience, the pure chaos, all traced back to Madison's Thanksgiving dinner. She was quietly encouraged to explore other opportunities. 3 weeks later, she took a position at a small firm in Queens, half the salary, twice the commute. Her luxury apartment? Gone. The BMW she leased? Returned. The designer wardrobe? Probably being sold online. Meanwhile, my business grew. The Hartley building contract went through, $50 million over 5 years. Robert Harrison gave me a glowing recommendation that led to 3 more major contracts. Your sister called me, Aunt Carol told me over coffee, begging me to intercede. And I told her the same thing your father would have. Respect is earned, not demanded. And once lost, it's almost impossible to recover. Madison had learned the hard way that you can't build a life on a foundation of ingratitude and shame. The higher you climb while looking down on others, the farther you have to fall. The family fallout was equally swift. Word spread through our extended family like wildfire. Madison had been living off Olivia's money while treating her like trash. Our mother called from Florida, where she'd retired 2 years ago. Olivia, is it true? Everything Madison did? Yes, Mom. And you paid for her entire education? I promised Dad. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm flying up. Madison needs to hear some things from me. That conversation, I heard later, was legendary. Mom tore into Madison for 2 hours straight about respect, family values, and the meaning of gratitude. She ended by saying she was ashamed to have raised someone so ungrateful. Our cousins, who Madison had always looked down on for their ordinary jobs, were particularly unsympathetic. Cousin Tony, who runs a plumbing business like our dad did, posted on Facebook, "Money doesn't make class. Madison Turner is proof that you can have a law degree and still have no class at all." The post got 300 likes from family and friends. Madison tried damage control, posting her own version of events, claiming I'd ambushed her and ruined her career out of jealousy. But Aunt Carol shut that down quickly by posting the receipts, literally. Screenshots of the trust fund payments, all from my accounts. The most surprising support came from my employees. When they heard what happened, they rallied around me. My foreman, Mike, a 60-year-old veteran who'd been with me since the beginning, said it best. You gave that ungrateful girl 300 grand and she was ashamed of you? Boss, you're worth 10 of her. My office manager, Sarah, was less diplomatic. I hope she enjoys taking the subway. Bet she's too good for that, too. But perhaps the most satisfying vindication came from an unexpected source. 3 of Madison's former Columbia classmates reached out to me, looking for HVAC services for their firms. One said bluntly, "Anyone who could build what you built while supporting an ungrateful sister has the kind of character we want to work with." Madison, meanwhile, was persona non grata at family events. Christmas came and went without her. When she showed up at Aunt Carol's New Year's party anyway, the room went silent. People literally turned their backs. She left after 10 minutes. She made her choice, Aunt Carol said. She chose prestige over family. Now she has neither. The girl who was so ashamed of her blue-collar roots had become the family shame herself. 6 months after that Thanksgiving, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. Turner Climate Solutions landed 3 major hospital contracts, partly thanks to Robert Harrison's recommendation. We expanded to 300 employees. I was featured in Business Weekly as the blue-collar CEO who built an empire, a title I wore with pride. Madison, I heard through the grapevine, was struggling at her new firm in Queens. The pay barely covered her student loans, which were now crushing without my support. She'd moved to a studio apartment in a building that, ironically, used one of my competitors for HVAC services. I wondered if she thought about that every time the air conditioning rattled. Then in May, I received a long email from her. Olivia, I've spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand why I became someone who could treat you the way I did. The short answer is, I was so afraid of being seen as less than that I became less than human. I know you've heard this before, but I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry for the consequences. Sorry for the 7 years I took your love, your money, your sacrifice, and gave you nothing but shame in return. Dad would be disgusted with me. I'm disgusted with me. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for you to restore the trust fund. I'm working 2 jobs now to pay my loans, and honestly, it's what I deserve. I'm learning what you already knew. There's dignity in hard work, no matter what kind. I don't expect a response. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I threw away. You weren't just my sister or my benefactor. You were my hero, and I was too blinded by false pride to see it. Madison. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back, Madison, I appreciate your apology and your self-reflection. I'm glad you're in therapy. If you're serious about changing, prove it. Not to me, but to yourself. Work your 2 jobs. Pay your loans. Remember what it feels like to earn rather than be given. Maybe someday, when you've truly learned to value where you came from instead of running from it, we can have coffee. But that day isn't today. Set your own boundaries. Earn your own success. Find your own way. That's what I did, Olivia. I meant every word. Forgiveness might come someday, but respect? That had to be earned. And Madison had a long way to go. That Thanksgiving changed everything. I learned that setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. That enabling someone's disrespect, even out of love, serves no one. And that the promise I made to my father had an expiration date, the moment his other daughter forgot where she came from. Today, Turner Climate Solutions is bigger than ever. We employ 350 people, many from blue-collar backgrounds like mine. I make sure every single one knows their work has dignity and value. Madison? Last I heard, she's still at that firm in Queens, still paying off her loans, still learning what it means to earn your way. Maybe she'll make it. Maybe she won't. But it's not my responsibility anymore. The most important lesson? Never be ashamed of honest work. Never let anyone make you feel less than for working with your hands. And never, ever forget where you came from. Because forgetting your roots doesn't make you sophisticated. It makes you hollow. And hollow people? They eventually collapse under their own emptiness. Just ask Madison. Thank you for listening to my story. Setting boundaries with family is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary for our own well-being. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Your support means everything. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut off someone who didn't appreciate your sacrifices? What would you have done in my situation? Drop a comment below. And remember, never be ashamed of honest work, no matter what anyone says. Your value isn't determined by your job title, but by your character. Until next time, stay strong and know your worth.